This is me at 32, almost turning 33, just before my crucifixion. And I took my family skiing on the 16th of January, 2007. That's my wife on the top left. We don't have a helmet, as you can see. Today, we go skiing with a helmet. Because what happened to me next on the ski slope was that I hit a tree. I was going down, most of you probably have never skied. And you may not have heard of skiing off-piste. And I went skiing off-piste with no helmet, and I hit a tree. And somehow I spun backwards, hit my head in the back of the tree, and instantly my brain was severed from my skull, from my ear to my jaw. That size, 12 centimeters long. The brain was ripped off the skull. By 5 centimeters wide, it bled profusely until 70% of my brain cavity was filled with blood. And the brain was compressed 3 times into the top left chamber of my skull. I was totally brain dead. 6 hours later, I was in Lionsgate Hospital, Vancouver. I'd already been put on life support, so I had a ventilator keeping me alive. They put me into a CT scan. That image is the scan of my head before the operation. They found the blood clot in the brain that size. They then had to crack the skull. If you look at the slide on the top right and the bottom, you can see this on the top right, the metal staples on my skin, because they had to cut away half of my scalp, lift the scalp off, crack the skull open, and take this much of my skull off my head to access the blood, because the blood clot was so big. So after the healing of the skin, which was only 10 days later, they removed the metal staples. You can see the top left one has the metal staples. I had 58 metal staples holding my skin together. They removed the metal staples, and what was left on the bottom right is the round titanium clips holding the bone in my head together. Because your bone in your brain, your skull, does not have marrow. It never fuses back together. This head that you're looking at is broken permanently. It's held together with those metal clips. The doctors said I had a 2% chance of survival. They said I had a 0% chance of being normal. Never that I was ever normal. But they said I would not be able to talk. I would not be able to walk. I would not be able to remember anything. That I would be a vegetable for the rest of my life. But that was a miracle, right? Because there's no way I can explain to you why I'm alive. I woke up after being in the coma for 5 days. I was kept in a comatose state because the brain had to expand back into the cavity. You see, our brain is like a sponge. It had been compressed 3 times and it had to expand back. There was no guarantee that it would expand back. That 2% chance is the statistic. Michael Schumacher had a hematoma that was 3 times smaller than mine. Unfortunately, his story is different. When the brain expanded back into the cavity and was around 99% of its physiological size, they brought me out of the coma and woke me up. And I woke up. I didn't look so good. My eye that has a patch on it was because of the bruise of my brain hitting the inside of my eyeball inside my skull. When it was ripped off the back of my head, it caused an internal bruise that I had to keep the eye closed with a patch for a few days. When I woke up, I instantly thought that I was in an alien spaceship and people were experimenting on me. Because I saw a tube coming out of my mouth and them pulling out. I thought they were pulling my stomach out. And I passed out from the shock. Then I came around again and I opened my eyes and said, "Where am I?" And the lady said, "What?" I said, "You heard me. Where am I?" She said, "Do you not know where you are?" I said, "I'm in hospital." She said, "Which hospital?" I said, I don't remember. Whistler. She said, "No, you were moved to Lionsgate. This is what happened to you. Do you know the day?" I said, "The day is Wednesday." She said, "No, it's Saturday." "Do you know your name?" I said, "Of course I know my name. It's Ken." "Why are you asking me these questions? Where's my wife? Get my wife." I was saying that before I died. "Where's my wife? Where's my wife?" She was still on the ski slope. My wife came in. They couldn't believe I was talking. They couldn't believe that I was thinking. I was compos mentis. God works miracles through all kinds of people. The surgeon was Dr. Gul, a Muslim. Muslim surgeon. I asked him, why did this happen? How can you explain it? A week later, we went to see him with my wife. My wife said to him, I just have one question for you. Can my husband be drinking alcohol? He said, what? Every day since he's been discharged, I discharged myself, by the way. So when I woke up, after 2 days, you can put the slide up. That's my daughter, by the way. She was very tearful. She said, my dad has never missed my birthday. She was turning 11 years old. She said, my dad has never missed my birthday. He'll wake up for me. But there was a lady there, a psychologist, teaching her to accept the fact that your father's dead, that he'll probably never come out of this coma. And she said to her mom in Russian, Mom, he's lying. She's lying. I don't want to listen to lies. My dad will wake up. So she was happy when I woke up for her birthday, that we celebrated her birthday in hospital. There you can see where they're removing the staples from the skull. I really looked beaten up. I looked in a bad state. The tears of humility, of gratefulness. God restoring my life. And then the persuasion of man to let me go, because they said they couldn't let me out of the hospital. So I said, okay, I'll take the tests. Maths test, English test, physical test, all the tests, memory test. I took the tests. Then they said, okay, you passed, but you have to wait for rehab. You need to be in hospital a few months. I said, no, I'm leaving today. I had to sign my own discharge. I left hospital. Then I went to the restaurant to celebrate with friends. I was drinking every day. A week later, my wife says to the doctor, to the surgeon, just one question, should he be drinking alcohol? He said, absolutely not. This thing that's happened to him, the fact that he's alive, I cannot explain it. But anyone who survives this, 1 in 10, up to 3 in 10 patients will have epileptic fits. And alcohol increases the risk of epilepsy by 10 times. I've never had one fit. In fact, I wanted to travel from Vancouver across the whole of Canada to Toronto. I had a conference to attend. I was the YPO president of this country at that time, and I had to go and attend the conference. So I wanted to fly, and they said I could not fly because the brain cavity where the air was had left air spaces in my brain, and if I went in the aircraft, it would expand and put pressure on the brain. And I went on the train 4 days across the Rockies, on that long-going train through Calgary and all the cities getting to Toronto. And the weirdest thing is I went up in altitude to 5,000 meters, and they said altitude puts pressure on the brain. They gave me medication, tablets. I never opened that bottle of tablets. I never touched those tablets. Why am I telling you this? Because God takes the impossible and does the possible.